Business is war. It is a zero-sum game. Somebody wins and somebody loses. This is probably the playbook which many of us have in mind when thinking about a competitive business, especially inspired right now by certain figures across the Atlantic Ocean. But what if we have got it all wrong, destructively wrong? As a former professional athlete turned entrepreneur who's now taking on a 300-year-old industry, I had the rare opportunity of seeing competition in two very different worlds. In my sports, sailing, I was good when the conditions were rough. But there were other sections where I was struggling. The more technical sections, on paper they should have been easier, but I approached them with the same intensity as I did rough weather sailing. No matter how hard I tried, I kept on losing. And it left me thinking, isn't there another way? Today, when we look at business, we see companies, we see managers, leaders that fight hard, that bargain for a very little bigger piece of the same old cake. And yet, they are struggling. Sometimes entire industries are struggling, and probably it leaves some of us thinking, isn't there a better way? It seemed to me that this question, isn't there a better way, became quite a decisive part of my life. And one of the life-changing moments when I asked myself this question was actually in 2012, after my studies on a trip to Latin America. And it all started with a drink. Picture this. I'm sitting in a lush green garden in a small hostel in Bahia, Brazil. The birds are humming around me, and on a small wooden table in front of me there's a glass. Its content is silky, its body is bright, almost glowing. And I take the glass up, I take a sip. It is like a symphony of flavors exploding in my mouth. It's bright citrus and sweet lychee and like a whisper of peach. I put the glass down and I ask myself, what on earth was that? The answer stuns me as much as it will stun you now. It is cacao. Not the bitter brown powder we all know, but the true, real flavor of fresh cocoa. In this moment, I realized something. We all think we know cocoa, but truly we don't. We only know 25% of the entire fruit, the 25% that the industry decided to valorize, while the rest of it today is discarded. And maybe you're asking, isn't there a better way? Little did I know that my journey with cocoa had just begun. My discovery of the cocoa fruit lay dormant for another years. It was not until 2017 when a business trip in the solar industry brought me to Ghana. To my own ignorance, I didn't know that Ghana is actually the second largest producer of cocoa and that 80% of the global world market is grown in West Africa. I was in Ghana to develop solar projects. And in order to better understand the local culture, I traveled to rural communities. And there in the thick rainforest of West Africa, I stumbled across a cocoa plantation. And my path came full circle. The feelings that guided me with this discovery or rediscovery of the cocoa fruit were quite different feelings. On the one hand, I was excited to rediscover my beloved cocoa fruit drink. And on the other hand, I was quite confused because when I asked the farmers about this delicious drink, they looked at me quite confused and just saw waste as a side product to their cocoa beans. This disconnect, this stark contrast between the delicious potential of the cocoa fruit on the one hand and the little valorization on the other hand became a symptom much larger problem than I expected before. The cocoa and chocolate industry, a $130 billion industry, is deeply dysfunctional. While billions of us indulge in this delicious treat, there are millions of children working in the fields of West Africa to harvest the very own ingredient of this delicious treat. Because millions of smallholder farmers are trapped in a cycle of poverty, forcing them to need their children as affordable labor. When I learned about these challenges of the cocoa farmers, a spark ignited in my mind. Couldn't we use the very own fruit to transform the cocoa supply chain? Could we create delicious products based on the cocoa fruit and create extra income for the smallholder farmers, eradicating the need of child labor? Isn't there a better way? The competitor within me saw a challenge, bold and audacious enough to take on. But such a challenge would not be easy. The experts warned us that it would be impossible. They said it would be impossible to organize all the smallholder farmers and teach them a new way of processing. They said it would be impossible to develop a reliable and safe food supply chain in the middle of the West African rainforest. And they said it would be impossible to develop a market for such a novel ingredient which the world hardly knows. However, for me, there was no reason why we should not be able to connect the smallholder farmers, the processors, the consumers to bring this delicious fruit and flavor into the world. For my co-founder and myself, there was only the reason that there's no electricity in rural West Africa to process such a product. And with our background in the solar industry, we were quite convinced that we could take this on. So this is how in 2017 our company TEDxZHAW was born. Well, what can I say? Of course, the experts were not entirely wrong. If building a new business is always challenging, transforming a 300-year-old industry, of which you have literally no clue about, and doing this in the middle of the West African rainforest is truly a moonshoot project. But despite all the challenges, and there were many challenges, especially in the moments where it was difficult and it seemed impossible to overcome these challenges, we somehow, nearly magically, paved through these waves of adversity. It was moments like when there were early-stage investors who backed our venture without any proof of concept, just because they believed how much it would make sense to do what we wanted to do. There were R&D and marketing departments of multi-billion-dollar companies that launched a product with us in less than 6 months, which normally takes more than 24 months, just because they wanted to be part of this journey. And it was moments like when I met Kwame James, one of the early farmers who worked with us in Ghana. Years after he joined our program, I asked him why he joined us when so many of the other farmers were skeptical to do so, rightly as the expert said. And he laughed. I said, Anian, you know, if I would get $1 of every representative of a sustainability program of these large chocolate makers who tells me that they will make my life better, I would be a quite rich person by now. But what you at TEDxZHAW talked about was something different. You talked about a new perspective, how we look at the cocoa, how we look at our own value and what we can do in order to change the supply chain. And this sparked me to work with you. I could continue with instances like this, whenever we needed the desperate resources, when we needed a partnership, when we need to overcome a challenge, somehow our spirit allowed us to find a way. From a business perspective, we delivered the picture-perfect example of lean innovation. So where are we today? 7.5 years later, we have cooperated with dozens of companies, from small startup to big multinationals. We have launched millions of cocoa fruit-based products into the market, generating more than $1 million extra income directly in the pockets of the smallholder farmer. Today, the cocoa fruit is available in a wide range of applications, from ice creams to drinks, and of course in our beloved chocolate. And what happened to the child labor, I hear you say? I'm proud to say that today we can prove, externally verified, that we managed to reduce child labor by over 60% in the farms we work with. And we do so with more than 5,000 across Ghana. This means that now thousands of children have the chance to attend school, developing the chance for a brighter future. And this is not where we're going to stop. So what was the better way? What allowed us to achieve something what many said was impossible? At TEDxZHAW, we were not the only ones who ever tried to valorize the cocoa fruit. We face competition of multi-billion-dollar companies with deep pockets, vast networks into the cocoa supply chain, and massive R&D knowledge to utilize the cocoa fruit. At TEDxZHAW, we were also not the first who ever tried to valorize the cocoa fruit. But we were the first to do so with the intention of changing the life of the smallholder farmers, their children, and the industry for good. And this sparked everyone to work with us. Are you seeing it now? Having a bigger reason why you do what you do. Looking beyond your own challenges and partnership. This is what made us succeed when many believed it would be impossible. At TEDxZHAW, you could witness that it's possible to build businesses that strongly interlock business success and positive impact to the world. It is like a flywheel effect. With every bit of more business success, you automatically create more positive impact to the world. But let's be honest, at TEDxZHAW, we cannot change the world alone. What it needs is a collective movement of like-minded companies that redefine business success. And if you look around you, there are plenty of them. Companies like Patagonia, Ben & Jerry's, Tony's Chocolonely, and many, many more that are proving that doing good is not only a moral imperative, but a smart business strategy to foster innovation. And innovation is the basis for all competitive advantage. So this means that if we want to be successful in the long run, we have to invest in innovation. So do you agree that probably today is more important than ever that we build innovation-based, robust, future-proof businesses? If the answer is yes, then this is how we are going to rewrite the business playbook together. First, find a purpose for your company. There are so many challenges we're facing right now, and your companies can and must be a part of the solution if they want to be relevant in the future. Second, look beyond your own challenges. Problems don't come in isolation. Looking at them holistically will allow you to find a solution for yourself and for the system. And third, team up with like-minded others. Because business is a challenging and beautiful game. And if played right, it is not a zero sum, but a 1 + 1 = 3 game. That's the better way. Danke schön.